Hey there, you, me, and DC fans, and welcome if you're new. I am the stepson of Krypton, coming to you today with Absolute Green Lantern, issue number 3. Now, I don't want to waste a whole lot of time because we got a lot to cover in this issue, so let's just go ahead and get on into it. All right, guys, so jumping right on in, this issue opens up to what we saw similar of the last issue. We have the black screen broken up into 4 different sections, and we see this ring that we've been seeing, except this time, instead of Joe, it's
John Stewart. You must have knowledge to command the flame. You must be without fear. Entirely without.
And John says, I know. And we see that similar gold ring that we've seen multiple times throughout this series. We flash back to when Abin Sur was holding Evergreen hostage. John is holding this gold ring, and we see him talking to his buddy Todd, whom I have to assume is Todd Rice, the son of the original Green Lantern Alan Scott. And they're discussing the food situation and how the townspeople are doing due to the green force field is blocking off connections to the rest of the world. And it seems like everybody so far is doing okay, but John makes mention that they're waiting for the grown-ups. So as John and Todd are talking and they're discussing the green bubble, they realize that it seems to have an effect on the people outside the field. Like they can't see everything that's going on. Mainly referencing that we saw this van as it kind of turns around, and they're pointing to that there's this dead body with the vultures going to town on it, but the van didn't seem to see that. Then Todd asks John, why he's carrying this gold ring, and John mentions that it came from one of the biker guys that had crashed into the green dome that we saw in the first issue. And while that guy was completely pulverized and the bike was destroyed as it hit the green barrier, the only thing to make it through the dome was the gold ring. But why did the gold ring make it through? It isn't even real gold. It's electroplated tin. So what are the rules here? We then see John throw the ring through the barrier, and he and Todd are clueless as to how, but not for long, as John says he's going to know everything. But first, he needs to talk to Hal Jordan. We then go back to Hal and Joe, and we're back where we left them in the previous issue, in the diner that is destroyed. Hal's black hand still holding that gun that seemed to have materialized as he was discussing it in the previous issue. And Hal says, black hand, it's hungry for the light, and it's angry with it. And asks Joe if she can turn off her cool new glowy lights. And they come to realize that neither of them seem to know how to turn their powers off. We then see Black Hand fire the gun at Joe, and she uses her powers to help block the fire. Hal, having lost control of Black Hand, however, continues to fire at Joe, and he tells her he can't stop it, and she begs him to get it under control. They continue to go back and forth until Joe goes green supernova, and Hal is sent flying out of the diner, and Joe once again tells him, get it under control. We then see, as Hal's dazed, Joe floating above him, glowing green, looking like Abin Sur hovering over him, telling him to get his shit under control or she'll do it for him. And Hal, still hurting from the landing, asks, how are you controlling it? We then go back to John and we see he's asking Joe about her wedding ring, and he's wanting to know what it's made of, which brings up bad memories for Joe, and he tells her she isn't one that waits for the adults to figure the situation out, and he needs her eyes on something, right? Joe's one that wants to figure out what's going on in the situation. Behold, the Blue Devil. And we see this tiny little gold statue being held up by Hal. Handing it to John, and Hal explains to Joe that John asked him for this. So clearly we see John is wanting to do some experimenting with gold or gold-like items. We see John and he takes the figure and he sticks it right through the field. However, he remarks that it is noticeably different and stronger reaction with the figurine versus when he threw the ring through. So Hal, Joe, and John are discussing the alien force field, and John mentions the Philosopher's Stone, the symbol of alchemy, and that it can turn base metals into gold. He says it can also heal wounds, prolong life, and create a homunculus.
A homunculus?
Perfectly formed miniature human being.
Oh, you're my little homunculus.
Now, I'm still struggling with what a homunculus, for those who don't know, is a perfectly formed miniature human, what that has to do with this here. But we see the ring again, that in the black like we did at the very beginning of the issue, and it says, light, the ever-burning lamp. And John realizes that cheap plastic can breach the barrier if it takes the form of gold. So what about actual gold? Joe asks. We then see John, and he's getting ready to throw his grandmother's diamond ring through the portal, and boom, looks like this massive explosion of green energy. Hal comments that the ring actually made a hole in the barrier. However, it does quickly close, and they remark that if they had enough gold, someone might be able to escape through the barrier. And then, just as we start to see them planning, we hear a voice that says,
John Stewart.
of course, you kind of knew from the green text that it was none other than Abin Sur. And he points at John, and his hand goes green, and as per usual, he says,
Judgment in progress.
John seems to be disintegrated by the green light, just as we saw previous others, and Abin Sur says John Stewart has been judged. And we hear, what a miserable son of a bitch. That move didn't seem to sit right with Todd, and he grabs a shotgun and he fires at Abin Sur, to which nothing happens because of the green force field that's protecting him. And he says, Judgment in progress, Todd Rice. Be without fear. We see this green swirl, green flame up, and Joe says that John got too close, and Hal remarks that they should have been more careful, and Todd agrees. And they all seem to accept that they are prisoners trapped by an alien god. Unless somebody ends it, says Hal. And we see him at this table crafting what looks to be gold bullets to be loaded into a gun he has sitting before him. But that's a story for another day, or at least another issue. And that is Absolute Green Lantern number 3. We're struggling to get past a point. If you think about where we first started when Hal's in the diner and he's been confronted by the other people in the diner, and then Joe shows up. We've gone the couple issues now, and we haven't moved past that point because they had a brief conversation, but we're getting more and more backstory, and we're realizing just how long it's actually been that Evergreen was under this bubble, because the issue makes it seem like as soon as this happened, everything has gone to shit, and then there's Hal showing up at the diner and killing the cop. But it seems like it's been going on for a little while. So I like where the issue is heading. I like that we're seeing, basically everybody who's been a Green Lantern in the comics before was apparently an Evergreen. So we're seeing all of them. But I like that, we've got Black Hand here, we've got some Green Lanterns, and we don't know yet what happened when these guys got vaporized, like when John just got vaporized, what's happened to him. So definitely excited for where this is going, and excited for the next issue. Let me know down in the comments, how are you feeling about the Absolute Green Lantern series? And if you have made it with me this far, consider giving the video a like down below, subscribing to the channel, and having the little bell notification clicked. I know it's a lot to ask, guys, but this helps the channel grow, and then you'll get alerted as we continue on with the series of all of the different, we've got 6 different Absolute series going on now, as well as Justice League Unlimited. And guys, to keep this one as short as is humanly possible, that is going to wrap it for me on this episode of You, Me, and DC. Until next time, guys, I'll see you then.